Welcome to third edition of Uncensored Talks. So if somebody doesn't know, Uncensored Talks are our bi-monthly events that we are hosting in different venues around London and exploring different facets of SexTech. So the theme of our today's event is SexTech Do-It-Yourself. Have you ever wondered what lies underneath the soft silicon layers of sex products? Well, now it's the time to stop wondering and get your hands on it. This edition of Uncensored Talks will shine the light on many efficient and creative ways to build your very own sex tech at home. To celebrate DIY practice and sparkle enthusiasm in our audience, we invited thought-provoking hackers and makers to share with us their practice and push boundaries of what sex products can be. So the format of this night is following. We're going to have 2 talks, then we're going to have a 30-minute break so you can enjoy the exhibition and explore our merchandise, and have some fun, socialize, have drinks, and then we're going to have 2 more talks and more time for networking. After every talk, we're going to have a time for Q&A. We're going to have 3 questions for each speaker, and if your question didn't get selected, don't worry, you're going to have opportunity to ask more questions during a small panel discussion in the end. Yeah. So the first speaker of tonight is going to be Raspberry Dream Labs, and represented by me, founder of the company, and our technical lead, Edward, who is going to then take the mic on the second part of this talk. We're going to give you introduction into what DIY sex tech is and where is it heading. So we're going to go through a small history of DIY practice. So, what is DIY sex tech? So this is technology-driven innovations, including software and hardware, that enhance the human sexual experience. These innovations can be created by anyone using any everyday objects. So it's very important to know that loads of apps that are currently existing, they also relate to the sex tech. So it's not only the devices that people think of can be used as sex tech products. So dating apps, different programs, toys, robots, virtual reality, augmented reality, multiple immersive installations, that all falls within the sex tech. And most of these things you can buy in any hardware store and compose it yourself. So it actually started way, way beyond our civilization. It started, well, from what archaeologists say, 26, 28,000 years ago. So this was found in Greece. This is where first documented DIY tool made from very relevant technology back at the time, stone. And those things being discovered throughout the history in many multiple places. Because our ancestors enjoy sexual experiences as much as we do. Then, as technology progressed, we have the bronze, which was a very innovative tool back then. And these toys, they were discovered in the tombs of really wealthy Chinese emperors and Chinese wealthy people. So then we have 4th century, ancient Greek. So that interesting toy is actually made out of bread. In ancient Greek times, people didn't really bother how to have pleasure. They just wanted more pleasure, essentially. They didn't classify themselves as heterosexual, homosexual, or anything like that. They were just in it for fun. Then the next one is actually, it's a wrong picture. It's supposed to be made out of goat lead, which is this interesting, innovative tool which was discovered also in China. So they used goat lead as the cock ring. Yeah, very, very, very fascinating. Then technology progressed and people developed condoms, which were created from animal intestines. And then once we start moving towards more our era, we see this steam-powered manipulator, which looks really like a hardcore device. And so it even was developed before the electricity came in a game. And so device next to it, so actually both these devices were used to treat hysteria in women. They were not designed with the intention for orgasms or anything like that. They were used as a medical tool because female pleasure was considered hysterical. So the device on the very end is actually been classified as the most efficient DIY device to treat hysteria. So it must have been powerful. And then we move more closer to our times. This is not DIY, I just found it very fascinating, and that's why I added this to this slide. So this device was essentially created for barbers to massage people's heads, but then it just became very pleasurable in what it does, what it could do, and people were applying it for different purposes. Same pretty much as what we know all about this classical magic wand that essentially was designed as a massager, but then people found many other different applications for it. And then we get to the end of 20th century, where the patent was designed for teledildonics, which essentially kind of like took away the possibility for people to develop connected toys over the internet, where it became a thing. So all this time so far, most of sex tech was pretty much just a hardware, because there was not much you can do really with it apart from like controlling it manually. But once that patent was developed, it kind of put like a small pause and kind of like limited people into what they could do. They could get a license and do whatever they wanted with it, or just have to find some other ways around it, such as butt plug. So this is an open source platform and a project that was designed when kind of the patent came to an end. Which kind of gave people opportunity to hack devices and create their own software, how they control and find different ways how they can use the existing toys and custom made as well. Because obviously for those who got the license, they wouldn't open the access to the toys to the public. But places like these, they provided opportunity and a ground for people to get in there and create what they wanted. There is another place, a really great resource, Meta Fetish Club. So it's created by QDOT, and there's a forum where people discuss different ways how they can create software and hardware, seeking advice, recommendations. So if you're interested in making something, that's one of the resources to go to. That's another really interesting one. So they are using Arduino boards and custom printed 3D models that you can create, and then using this open source Arduino system, control it the way you want. And this is also a really interesting one. So it actually provides you already a place where you can design your own toys without even creating them outside in any software. So essentially it works like any other vector. So you just move up the dots and create shape that you like, and then from there you can download it and essentially 3D print it straight away, and then use any of the previously shown boards. So some of the exotic treasures that I discovered while I was researching DIY sex tech online, which is I wanted to share with you guys. So this is some designs that people create currently these days in America. So some little husky, though that interesting sitting device, a throne, the robot. Yeah, I mean, why not? Imagination is the only limit. So this is also a fascinating page. The company Love Honey, they are creating like competitions every year where they essentially like letting people to come up with ridiculous designs, and then the winner gets the prize, and their design is actually being implemented and being produced. So yeah, these are some of the not very successful examples that didn't get selected. Actually, I do like that one. I think it's actually cool, that little octopus thing. But yeah, the 3-in-1 biter is it's very, very, very niche, I think. The butt plug opener. Yeah, so essentially just could go with it, do whatever. Have fun. Yeah, and on this fun introduction, I'm gonna pass the mic to Edward, who's going to talk about more serious stuff and tell you everything about soft robotics and how it's being implemented in sex tech. Please welcome Edward.
Thank you. So we've had a little on the history and current state of sex tech. So I'm going to look a little more towards the future of sex tech, which in my opinion is going to be heavily focusing on soft robotics. So, the future, space. Space is always the future, eventually. If anyone's got 50k to pay for a comic flight, I've got a few ideas to try out. So, at the moment, we've got lots of different set stories available. We've got lots of different apps available. A lot of them don't talk to each other. So, in the future, open hardware and protocol standards, they're going to be important. Got some guys working on it over here. Got butt plug, which was mentioned already. Novel materials. So, a lot of what we can create at home is limited by the materials we have access to. So, making things out of wood is fairly common. Making things out of plastic, getting more common thanks to 3D printing. So 3D printing, democratic design, downloadable files that you can print out, that's making things a lot more available for what you can create, what materials you can create things in, the designs you can work on, you can develop things based on other people's designs. So there's a lot more creativity going on and a lot lower barrier to entry as to what people can create. Advanced controls. I don't mean this by buttons and levers that you can press, I mean by what's actually controlling the sex toy. So you want something to happen, you press a button, and your vibrator turns on. That's a little boring. You can create a much more complicated sequences of actions. We don't need to go full deep learning yet, just basic neural networks are barely even used. So you can have things that are responsive, things that work on their own, things that feed back from your body state that's been measured. There's very little of this going on at the moment, and that's a wide field of things that you can implement in DIY to have a lot more exciting toys than we do at the moment. XR, virtual and real augmented reality. At the moment, this is going to be mainly visual, basically due to limitations of hardware. We don't have many haptic input and output devices on the market that are in any way in the consumer realm. So visual stimuli, auditory stimuli, fantastic. Tactile stimuli, that's probably going to be limited to installation-based stuff for the near future. But going forwards, I'm sure there's a lot of people working on hardware that you can use with virtual devices. So let's take a quick look at what isn't the future. We've seen the steam-powered vibrator earlier, and that's kind of the state of advanced sex tech at the moment. I'm going to play you a little video here.
Fucking machine. Fucking machine.
You've seen this guy before.
Machine. Fucking machine. Fucking machine. Fucking machine. This too is a fucking machine. Fucking machine. Hello. I am Fuckzilla. This is a room full of fucking machines. Machines built purely for fucking. Here we have the fabulous sci-fi set at the Kink Armory, made specifically for fuckingmachines.com. As you can see, our incredible in-house art department has recreated the Battlestar Galactica spaceship right in the confines of the armories. If you listen very carefully, you can hear the echoes of orgasms past. Do you hear them? Do you hear them? Yes. Here we have a fabulous array of dildos used for fucking machines. You can see they range from small and unintimidating to, oh my god, what the hell is that size? Can you guess what I have in my hand, citizen? Ha ha ha, no. This is not a fucking machine. This is a step stool. Ha 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 ha. How about this? Can you guess what this is? Correct, it is a cake mixer, and also a fucking machine. This may look like an ordinary toolbox, but it too has been modified to fuck. Everything in this room has been modified to fuck. Take this, for instance. It can cut drywall and fuck. But seriously, there are a lot of fucking machines in here. Fucking machines everywhere.
Okay, so quick question for everyone. How many different machines did you see in that video? Yeah, 20? Just one? Oh, good answer. So there are a good number of machines there. I counted 13, kind of hard to tell in the background. The problem is, of all those machines, there was only one mechanism used. So all of them are based on basic reciprocating motion. You've got something, it goes backwards and forwards, and that's pretty much all it does. And most machines are either something that goes backwards and forwards, something that vibrates, or something that vibrates and goes backwards and forwards. So most sex toys are designed around replicating a general heteronormative sex, of normally penetrative sex, or there are a few toys like the very terribly named womanizer, which uses suction, but for the most part, sex toys are designed to replicate human interaction, which, one, is a little redundant because we have humans, two, is a little boring and uninspired. So I think that if you consider sex tech and human arousal in general as an engineering problem space, there's a lot more to explore than just replicating what humans can do. And I think soft robotics is a good way of exploring that. So soft robotics in general is the study of compliant robotics and systems. So you're probably familiar with robot arms that are used in industry, that are fairly large objects. They're rigid, they're hard, they're dangerous to be around, and you don't really want to put humans nearby them, let alone in an intimate context. Soft robotics is a lot safer. It's softer, like physically, and also in terms of rigidity, so you can bend them. They're not going to do particular damage to you. They're controlled by gas pressure, by hydraulics on pneumatics, so you can keep, instead of putting motors inside them, you can keep them further away, even potentially in a different room. So they can be smaller, they can produce more power safely without injuring people. I'm going to give you a quick video from the NASA Ames laboratory, which is an overview of soft robotics. And you're going to see some interesting things in there that I want you to remember.
We're looking at using soft robotic systems to manipulate the lunar and Mars surface materials to help further the development of human habitation on the surface. A soft robot is a mechanical system that is flexible and compliant, and not a standard hard or rigid system. Rigid systems, when they hit you, they hurt. On Earth, people do not work alongside robots because it's dangerous. Soft systems are far more compliant, so that if it hits someone, there's a lot less chance of getting injured and or killed from that contact. So soft systems in space make sense when we have robots working alongside people doing very dangerous tasks in very dangerous environments. So for instance, this is a structure that's enclosed on itself that's covered in silicone. And in this silicone, there's various cells or air bladders that we use to manipulate this system. We can get it to roll, we can get it to unfold and form various types of shapes. Well, currently, for our experiments in the lab, we're making them out of silicone, and we pour this into molds. We make those out of 3D molds we print on our 3D printers. Then we fill the silicone into those molds, we let it harden, and then wire the system up with our air lines, and then do our tests. So first we look at leveling, we also look at shaping, we also look at joining, and then we look at locomotion. They're all very important because we intend to have many of these on the surface of the Moon and Mars to do the certain types of assembly and disassembly that we plan to do. But you can also use these soft robotics within the spacesuit to give them more power to lift, more power to run, more power to walk, and ease the workload on an astronaut for longer EVA in space.
I wasn't joking about space being the future. So you saw a large selection of different mechanisms they were using for machines that robots that move, robots that could roll around, that can curl on themselves. You saw a brief glimpse of a few that had lights embedded inside them. There's a huge range of morphologies, of structures, of mechanisms that are available for soft robotics that aren't available to rigid robotics. So they're able to rapidly grow lines and shape. This is a robot based on actually a mechanism used for lining pipes. But you can see there's a rolled up tube in there that when inflating the chamber that the tube is within, the robot can extend. You can see this one is changing direction as it extends. By adding bladders to those joints, you can determine which direction it's going to bend. So you can have a very compact robot that can deploy itself into a much larger structure. They're able to change surface texture. So you have, this is a robot surface that can transform from flat to a sort of camouflage look. But you can pre-program different shapes that you want it to be in. You can also produce a small grid of cells and produce arbitrary surfaces, so you can change how your robot looks, not just in terms of color, but also in texture. You can change color, you can embed fluid channels into it, so you can inject colored ints into them, and you can inject any other fluid you want as well, so you can inject hot or cold things to change the surface temperature as you want them to. If you add small pores to the surface, you could also generate robots that lubricate themselves, which can be very useful for insertion applications. I'd highly recommend looking up a talk by Matthew Bogarty called My Robot Will Crush You with Its Soft, Delicate Hands. It's a really good overview of the current state of soft robotics in industry and in terms of medical devices, but also in terms of the general design of soft robots and how to construct them. So my view of the future of sex toys is toys that can vary size, shape, and physical properties at will. Toys capable of non-anthropomorphic actions that aren't just replicating things humans can do, but are doing things that humans can't do. That can restrain and manipulate without risk of injury or with reduced risk of injury. Something that a hard mechanism, as anyone who's built BDSM equipment or used BDSM equipment, you can tell how easy it is to injure yourself with that if you're not using it correctly. If it falls over, it's going to cause a lot of damage. Great because of comfort. They're soft robots. They're soft. Like, that may not always be the desirable outcome, but for a lot of sex tech, you want it to be comfortable. You don't want to lean over and have something jab you in the ribs. Wide range of customizable dynamic aesthetics. So you can change the color, you can change the texture, you can change its appearance, you can change its shape without going out and buying a large array of different items in order to try out what feels good for you, what feels good for a partner. You can have one device that can accomplish various different things. You can have augmentative toys, so you can attach these to yourselves with a much less issue than attaching a rigid object to yourself. If anyone's familiar with the field of prosthetics, you'll probably be aware of just how difficult it is to get an artificial limb attached to a human in a comfortable manner that isn't going to chafe over the long term. A soft mechanism can adapt to a person, it can wrap around them, it's not going to abrade them, it's not going to chafe them, it's not going to prod them. So you can have toys that attach to you that can also augment you. They can inflate and increase strength in the medical applications. You can have things that change your apparent size and shape. So you have a lot of range of different things you can experiment with that are beyond the capabilities of humans, that are within the capabilities of mechanisms. And tactile feedback. So there's lots of things that provide feedback already, mainly through vibration motors, but because soft robotics are based on fluid physics, you can have more direct feedback. You don't need a computer. You can mediate things with a computer, but you don't need it to. You can have devices where squeezing it will produce a direct reaction on you, or vice versa, without anything in between. So if you are concerned about cybersecurity of sex toys, which is a big concern, you can have something that's completely non-electronic, but it also means you can have very fine feedback, very immediate feedback, and very direct feedback of things that are happening not necessarily in the same shape as a human. So the obvious example of soft robotic tentacles, as I'm sure you have probably thought of, a tentacle is not an arm. A tentacle looks very different. It has different tactile receptors, but you can still map one to the other. You can have, for example, an array of suction cups that map to your fingertips, where pressure is still directed exactly to them, so you can still feel what's going on, even if it's a completely different shape. You don't need a complex computer algorithm in this, you just need some pipes. So, any questions? There's two over here as well later.
Is there any sensing tech? So, for example, you could put sensors in your soft robotics and have it, detect some sort of reaction and then adapt automatically.
This is at the very cutting edge of development. This is, literally there are papers coming out right now about methods of sensing with soft robotics. Sensing the position and state of soft robotics is a severe engineering challenge. Because they're soft and compliant, they can bend in ways that you can't predict in advance. So rather than just sensing the angle of a joint and knowing, I know exactly what shape my robot is, you've got to sense the stretch of something, the compression of something, the twist of something. It's difficult. There are algorithms available. There is research being done at the moment, particularly with embedding optical fibers into robots and also embedding materials that change resistance based on their stretch. But that is a cutting edge at the moment, so that's going to be a significant... If you want to implement a soft robot into a VR environment, that's a significant challenge at the moment. If you're just using a soft robot and you can look at it and see what it's doing and manipulate things, you can mostly get by. But if you want something completely autonomous, that is cutting edge.
You probably would have mentioned it, but are there any sexy soft robotic tech out there at the moment? And if not, what would yours be?
As far as I'm aware, the closest thing to soft robotics are inflatable dildos and inflatable butt plugs. They're relatively simple, so you can go from a preset shape to a balloon, and then back again. So you can do things with them. You can potentially automate them with pumps, but they're not designed to move in a predetermined manner. They're just designed to expand. So we're still looking at a lot of different things as to what both is easily achievable in the short term and what is novel enough that it can easily be replicated with a mechanical mechanism in place. So I don't have anything I can give you as this is what it's going to look like. We don't know yet.
Cool. Thank you so much, Edward.
Thank you.